Welcome back to Tabletop Assault. I'm Ross, and today I'm going to continue my segments on analysing the Chaos Space Marine Codex. Now today I'm going to look at the Helbrute. Interesting unit because I remember once using Chaos Space Marine Dreadnoughts. So when Helbrute came around, now all but named sort of is like Dreadnought, but it was a bit of a controversial change, and I remember being not a fan at the time. But now I absolutely love it. I think it's okay, and I got over it. But there is some major differences between obviously the Loyalist Dreadnought and then obviously the Chaos Space Marine Helbrute. However, with that, we're going to look at the Helbrute today. How these usually work is that I am going to look at the stats of the model as they appear in the book, look at some of the equipment that they come with and the upgrade options they can use, special rules. Then from there, I go into loadout and role suggestions, where I basically say some of the best ways I think you can get from using the unit. Legion traits, if they are applicable. Psychic abilities that they can benefit from, and stratagem recommendations in case you use the unit. Something to keep in the back mind. So with that, let's have a look at the Helbrute. So the Helbrute has a movement of 8, faster than most infantry, and kind of standard for your walker type that isn't like Elder variety, which they might be 8 as well, but I don't think so. But you know, a bit faster than your standard infantry, and certainly faster than the last edition, which I'm a huge fan of, that they gave them a bit more speed. Weapon skill and ballistic skill 3+, so they are going to reliably hit quite a bit of the time, which is excellent. You know, standard sort of marine hitting, but still nice and reliable. Strength 6, a bit weaker than I'd think, but that's standard sort of for I think most walkers as well that aren't like big tier ones. Sort of the generalist for same with the marine as well. Strength 6 is fine. Obviously there is some great ways to make this to at least strength 8, which is very key for taking out infantry, and then beyond that if you're so inclined. Toughness 7, I'm perfectly fine with. I think toughness 8 would be asking too much, because that makes you into Land Raider and Lehman Russ range. So toughness 7 does mean that they are going to be a lot tougher, essentially going to be stopping, you know, las guns from damaging you so much, and then your bolters might still pepper away some paint, which would be annoying. But yeah, toughness 7, perfectly acceptable. 8 wounds, fantastic, keeps them going for a while. Could we ask for more? Yep, but would we be greedy? No, yeah, sure. Attacks 4. That's a weird one. I'd personally like some of the walkers to be attacks 5 as a minimum. I don't know how you guys, and I don't mean that in just the Helbrute, I more mean in general. Let me know what you think now. When attacks 4 is still nice, it's kind of standard for characters in a lot of way. Some of them are up to 5, but part of me thinks for walkers 5 would be nice. Let me know. Leadership 8. Well, you're not going to suffer a morale test because you'll probably be dead. There might be some debuff psychic abilities that might abuse this slightly, but generally leadership 8 for a solo unit is totally fine. And save 3+, which again, absolutely fine. We're not in Land Raider mode here, we're not getting a 2+ save, so that is perfectly understandable. Helbrute is armed with Multi-Melta and a Helbrute Fist, and some of its options are, may exchange the Multi-Melta with a second Helbrute Fist, or a Twin Heavy Bolter, or Twin Heavy Bolter, or Twin Last Cannon, or Helbrute Plasma Cannon, or Reaper Autocannon. So that's essentially, I'm going to quote here dangerously, the right hand side arm of the Helbrute that's basically his options on that side, he says, and then everyone's going to tell him it's the left hand side. The model may replace the Helbrute Fist with a missile launcher, which I'm thinking is the left hand arm, so that can either be a fist or a missile launcher. The model may replace the Helbrute Fist with a Helbrute Hammer or a Power Scourge. So essentially you've got either a missile launcher on the left hand side or another combat weapon, if you're so inclined. The model may incorporate a combi bolter or heavy flamer into each Helbrute Fist. So if you've got 2 Helbrute Fists, you can have 2 combi bolters or 2 heavy flamers, or if you only got one, you can stick a combi bolter or heavy flamer in there as well. Just go into some of the weapons for the Helbrute, because I won't talk about combi bolter or heavy flamer. I will talk about the Helbrute plasma cannon because it is exclusive to the unit. Helbrute plasma cannon is 36-inch range, heavy D3, so random amount of shots, strength 8, so straight off the bat that is like supercharged mode. Why is it that? Because it doesn't have standard mode. Minus 3 AP and 2 damage. For each hit roll of 1, the Helbrute suffers a mortal wound after all of its weapon shots have been resolved. I'll explain why that is an interesting thing to speak about, to think about in a minute. The main point of that is there's random shots, so it's not reliable, but it's straight into supercharge mode, so interesting. But there's an interesting way to sort of work on that as well. So the other, twin last cannon is like heavy 2, twin heavy bolter is heavy 6, Reaper off cannon heavy 4. Sort of weapons that do come a bit standard, though you see them on the Helbrutes a lot. But its exclusive weapons are like its melee weapons, Helbrute Fist, which is time 2 strength, which will bring it to strength 12, minus 3 AP and 3 damage apiece. So that's pretty reliable, that's pretty good on that side. The Helbrute Hammer, which is times 2 strength, again making it strength 12, minus 4 AP, so it's going to get through Land Raiders as well. I think minus 4 gets you through Land Raiders, I'm pretty sure it does. So that's extra AP, but it's D6 damage, so not reliable on that one. And even worse, when attacking with this weapon you must subtract 1 from the hit rolls. So you're risking getting maybe big damage, but you're also possibly losing more attack. Certainly from I think 3 plus hit, 66% chance to hit, give or take, to 50% chance, which you're losing chance to hit and you're going for a random amount of damage. I'm struggling to see the huge benefit of the hammer unless it's super cheap. Anyway, I'll talk about that later. And last thing I'll talk about is the Power Scourge, which is a melee weapon, plus 2 strength, which still brings you to a mighty strength 8, which I always believe is very, very important. Minus 2 AP, so not as good as the fist or the hammer, but still minus 2 AP is not bad. 2 damage, so reliable damage. 2 will get you through Terminators, and each time the bear fights it can make 3 additional attacks with this weapon, bringing you to a wonderful 7 attacks with the Power Scourge. I like that a lot. If you're a 5 attacks piece, that'd be 8 attacks, and this thing would be really fun. But no, there is ways to get more attacks, of course. But yeah, not bad. Anyway, that is some of the war gear options in there. Obviously, there's a lot more different ones, such as the multi-melt and everything. But they do. If I mentioned every option, we would be here just talking about weapons. With that, let's speak about some of the abilities, because it's got some interesting ones. Let's go with the big one that's kind of first in the rulebook, which is Crazed. At the end of any phase in which this model suffers an unsaved wound, that's important, or mortal wound, roll a d6. On a roll of a 6, this model immediately makes a shooting attack as if it was the shooting phase, if there are no models within 1 inch, or piles in and fights as if it was the fighting phase, if there's enemies within 1 inch. If there's no visible target within range, nothing happens. So why is that important? And this isn't reliably to happen all the time. I mean, it's 6s to get the crazed result. If you go like a ranged Helbrute, let's say the plasma variety, and you accidentally roll a 1 to hit and cause a mortal wound on yourself, that's in your shooting phase. Your shooting phase. You then roll that 6 and you then get crazed. I believe you get to shoot again. That sounds a lot like fun. At the end of the phase in which this model suffers an unsaved wound or mortal wound. So you mortal wound yourself in your own phase and you have an arse shooting round, fire your plasma again, fire your missile launcher again. Part of me would argue that if you then damage yourself again with the plasma cannon and roll another 6, you can do it again. Now, please someone tell me out there, please in the comments, that someone has done this and it's happened at least 2 to 3 times where you've just sort of damaged yourself with plasma and fired again. Is it the best? Maybe not, it's not reliable. Is it funny? It's hilarious. I would really like to see that more than anything. So yeah, craze is kind of cool on that side. I do miss that if you weren't in range of a viable target, it says nothing happens. I would have loved if you'd be able to make a free, movement. Maybe quite a lot to ask on that one, because movement is valuable in this game as well. But I just feel that if you're, for instance, a complete combat Helbrute and you don't have anyone within 1 inch and there's no viable targets, then you don't do anything. So if you're running down the field getting shot at and you've only got 2 Helbrute fists and you go, right, well no one's in range, I'm not going to go crazed, it's fine, it's fine. I would have loved if it's a combat variety one, you get to move as well. Maybe a bit insane, because that could really give you a great turn 2 charge. But we're kind of over the turn 1 charge now, so turn 2 is where it's at. Anyway, Battering Onslaught, add 1 to the attack characteristics if this is equipped with 2 melee weapons. There's your strength, there's your attacks 5, that'll get you 8 attacks with Power Scourge and a Helbrute Fist. Can you do that? Second Helbrute Fist, yeah, so I believe you can exchange the Multi-Melta with the Helbrute Fist and then the original Helbrute Fist, Power Scourge, which should bring you to 5 attacks, 8 attacks with Power Scourge, and then it gives you the variety. So yeah, that's kind of cool on that side. And then Explodes. If this model is reduced to 0 wounds, roll a d6 before removing the model from the battlefield. On a 6 it explodes. Recent battle reports have been rolling 6s for days when it comes to explosions, which is a lot of fun in some regards, but not ideal in always. And each unit within 3 inches suffers d3 mortal wounds. So yeah, if it explodes it's going to cause problems. Don't have your units nearby, have your enemies. Kind of important. So yeah, that's what you see from the Helbrute in the Codex. Kind of handy, kind of good. Let's speak about sort of the tactics wise for them. So I'm going to begin with sort of my loadout suggestions and rules for the Helbrute. Now there's a variety of different ways in which you can now kit out your Helbrute and what they're best suited for. I only really have one at the moment because we've got them all armed with Multi-Meltas and Helbrute Fists, but I have a whole, bunch of Helbrutes waiting to get built. Anyway, so yeah, let's have a look at sort of the merits and weaknesses of both the ranged, the melee variety, and the hybrid. So let's begin with ranged. Although I haven't really played a ranged Helbrute yet, I will do shortly, or at least in the future, as I said, quite a few Helbrutes to make. Just need to sort of get going with them, and I'd love to see one just sit there and unleash a whole torrent of firepower. One thing I'd say when it comes to the ranged Helbrute, make sure it does not get locked in combat. As much as this thing is a monster when armed with a Helbrute Fist and a Power Scourge, it will not do well if it gets in combat and it just has ranged weapons. So yeah, not ideal on that side if you get in combat, but if you are going for ranged, what are you best packing? Cool, let's begin with the Helbrute Plasma Cannon and Missile Launcher. This particularly cost-effective ranged platform for your Helbrute Plasma Cannon is a fair bit cheaper than the Twin Lass Cannon and has a good chance of taking out things like Terminators, Bikers, and things generally with 2 wounds pretty well. The Missile Launcher, I think, is your only range loadout for the second arm, because I think the second arm is predominantly combat stuff, so second arm is always going to be, as we talk about range, going to be missile stuff. So that's the way I'd go if you are going to go ranged. Why did I put the Plasma Cannon first? Well, as I mentioned, on a 1 you cause mortal wounds and not slain outright, which is always good, and then you can possibly hit the crazed result on your own turn and go again. So yeah, it's not as a 1 in 6 chance, but it's sometimes you gotta play for fun, and if you cause yourself to get crazed and do more damage, then all the better. Who knows, if you manage to cause mortal wounds on you in your own psychic phase from your own psyker exploding, yeah, do it on that as well. That's another example. It's not happened to me yet, but it can happen. Anyway, so yeah, the plasma one I put sort of first because you've got a range of targets. It's still pretty good. You might get 3 shots. Still 2 damage. You're going to kill stuff that way. Next one I'd go with is Twin Last Cannon Missile Launcher. 2 shots from the Helbrute firing the last cannon is nothing to look down on. A little bit pricey, but Helbrute does not get worse in accuracy. So even at 1 wound, you can still be accurate, which not many other units can say they do. This should hopefully cause a heck of a lot of damage when you focus on things with big multiple wounds. Though with D6 damage, the plasma cannon can be a little bit more reliable in that way, though it is only 2. Though multiple shots make it in turn unreliable back. If it was like a solid 3 shots, then the plasma cannon would be pretty good. So a real toss up between these two when you're planning to use the Helbrute for the heavy firepower. Love to hear what you think between the last cannon and the plasma cannon, especially if you manage to chain off a bunch of crazed results. Let me know. The other one I would mention is the Twin Heavy Bolter and the Missile Launcher. This is more for infantry killing models, better for horde armies than the other 2. Though if hordes are facing Helbrutes in this loadout, then you've got maybe a few more concerns, getting locked in combat, which hordes tend to try and do in some regards. So, a bunch of boys come down, or Termagants, I need to remember the difference between the 2, coming towards you. You don't want them to lock down your Helbrute in combat, but this should help you mow down a few of them on the way. It's cheap, and with the amount of firepower you can leash, it can do a fair bit of damage on slowing them down. I haven't tried this one out, and I'm not all convinced by this one entirely, but it can slaughter light infantry pretty easily. I also choose this over the autocannon as you get more shots at less strength by 2 with the same AP and damage, and the targets you're going for probably won't really, whether it's strength 5 or strength 7, it's not going to matter too much. Maybe for things like the lighter Tyrannids, then you might be wounding in 2s, but I'd probably take 2 extra shots just for the heck of it. So yeah, that's sort of the range varieties that I would go for on those ones. Let me know if you've got better loadout for the range, specifically if you have got any justification for the multi-melta, or which I doubt if you're going for ranged, and we are talking purely ranged, multi-melta or the Reaper autocannon, let me know. Now we're going for melee. So the merits of melee Helbrute are clear. It can punch a hole in a variety of targets and really does hurt hard, and it doesn't get weaker as it takes wounds. Sounds awesome, but again, without an invul save, this can easily be focused down before it gets into threat range of what it desires. I find if you have an opponent that is playing combat marines, say Blood Angels or possibly hordes, this may be a pretty good option. Helbrute moving up the field is, like a dreadnought, something you don't really want it to do if it's coming towards you, and it can't really be avoided because it can move a wee bit quicker. With this, it will attract a lot of firepower. It's a way to bring it down before it becomes into effect. I once lost 2 Helbrutes to a single crazy, very scary Land Raider, which I'm 90% sure David brought from Forge World, and it shot in one shooting phase. It blew up 2 Helbrutes before they got in combat. They were melta-gun and fist ones, but oh man, did that Land Raider kill Helbrutes, killed them for days. So you kind of want to make sure your melee ones do get in range to actually do something. With that, let's talk about sort of the loadouts that work best for them. Helbrute with 2 fists and combi bolters. So thanks to Chapter Approved, this became a lot cheaper option to field and a major choice now. I think beforehand you had to pay for 2 Helbrute fists and there was like no point in it. But now it is only a fraction of the cost to take 2. It's now actually became a better option. This gives you an extra attack and hits super hard. The danger is that the target this probably wants to go for probably hits back equally as hard as well, say against some kind of crazy tyrannid monster or another walker that is equally as dangerous, then this is not looking good. So it comes down to a matter of really who charges first and hopefully kill the other. Equally, if your opponent has rhinos transporting units up the field, this can be a reliable way to do a fair bit of damage. It might not open them up in one turn unless they all hit all wounds and then you get there, but it certainly can cause a threat. It might open them up in one go, but I wouldn't say it's reliable. I also prefer the combi bolter when unincorporated into the fists rather than heavy flamer, mainly as it will give you more options for causing casualties elsewhere. Last thing you want to do is basically kill units that you're going towards. So the heavy flamer, obviously on the range of 8, you flame the target, you're going to be charging. You can bet your opponent's going to be pulling out units from the front, so you can't get in a charge. So the combi bolter, I feel, just gives you a bit more variety. It is rapid fire too, so you're potentially getting 4 shots off at 12-inch range. That's nothing to say, that's nothing bad, So yeah, I probably prefer the combi bolters over the heavy flamers. Let me know. Equally, another thing I'd say in the heavy flamer, go, oh, what if you get charged by units? So you might be facing hordes and then you can flamer some and you might kill some targets, great. If you do get charged by something that probably wants to kill your Helbrute, then heavy flamer's not going to help you, probably. It's probably going to cause a wound or 2 maybe. I just don't find the heavy flamer as reliable as maybe the combi bolter's variety. But that's just myself. Next up we have Helbrute Fist with Power Scourge and the combi bolter in the fist. So a lot more points than the Helbrute Fist after chapter approved, but essentially give yourself 3 more attacks with another weapon and a bit more variety. Perhaps a bit expensive, but gives you the variety in combat to either break heavy units with Fist or slightly weaker units with a Scourge, although Scourge is still itself a pretty darn good weapon. Ultimately, I find this a bit expensive. The Scourge is a great weapon which will still threaten a whole lot of units. Personally, I would switch out the Fist for something cheaper, bringing us to the hybrid type. Now, the hybrid, I've only got one loadout for here, which is the twin heavy bolter, Power Scourge, or Power Fist if you're inclined, with the combi bolter and the Fist if you do go that way. So when going with a hybrid, I kind of think the heavy shots like the multi-melta and the twin last cannon, etc., are really not worth it. You're going to make it a lot harder to hit if you keep wanting to move your Helbrute into threatening range of your melee. However, the twin heavy bolter is relatively cheap and it does put out a bunch of shots, so that -1 to hit is not so bad. Between the Fist and the Power Scourge is difficult. I lean towards the Scourge myself, that 3 extra attacks and still plenty of damage to be done. The Fist is cheaper, I believe. I think you can include the combi bolter, so merits to both, but the Scourge is sort of what I'm leaning towards if you want to deal with infantry and still be able to do a bit of damage with vehicles. Sorry, I went a blank there. So yeah, the Scourge basically allows you to deal with infantry with more attacks and also a bit of vehicle damage as well. Rather than the Fist, which is really designed to probably do more to vehicles or heavier targets. So yeah, that is my sort of loadout suggestions for the Helbrute. Plenty of options there for loadouts. I ignored some key weapons there. Love to hear your opinion on sort of what you field with Helbrutes in terms of their weaponry. But I'm not done yet, let's continue with Legion traits, because Helbrutes, thankfully, do get Legion traits. So there is quite a few Legion traits that will benefit the Helbrute quite a lot because they are quite versatile in many ways. So with that, I'm going to just talk about the main ones I think are useful. So let's begin with the ever useful Alpha Legion, hidden in plain sight. Your opponent must subtract 1 to hit rolls from the target units when they target units with this trait if they're more than 12 inches away. Fantastic Legion trait for Helbrutes, as all things. They tend to attract a certain amount of firepower, so deny as much as possible is pretty important. Probably really good on ranged Helbrutes, making them a lot more harder to shift, and should see benefits till it's crushed or tied in combat. A combat or hybrid variety may see some benefit for a while, but your aim is kind of to get close to your opponent, so it'll be a benefit before you eventually, get into range where you want to be. But certainly the ranged Helbrute's going to absolutely love this one. Iron Warriors, Siege Lords. Enemy units attacked by this unit with this trait do not gain any bonus to saving throws in cover. In addition, you can reroll failed wound rolls for units with this trait when they target a building. So yeah, this is not going to help the melee ones at all. Help the hybrid slightly and will help the ranged ones quite a wee bit. However, with Helbrute, Plasma Cannon and Missile Launcher, you may not be targeting stuff that will typically be gaining cover anyway, but they might, so -1 is always handy. Still very helpful, but ignoring cover ain't as important as what it used to be. So it's helpful on the ranged ones. I'd say it's not bad. It's something to consider if you are Iron Warriors trait, but it really depends on if your opponent is hunkering down on cover, and if you are taking, as I said, plasma cannons and stuff, then they probably might not be, or at least not getting cover benefit. Renegade Chapter, Dark Raiders. This allows a unit with this trait to advance and charge in the same turn. So melee Helbrute is going to really like this, obviously. Nothing will break your heart than an angry Helbrute, ready to tear your opponent apart, and then is just like an inch or two from getting that charge off. When I do run Renegade Chapters, I usually always have a Helbrute, because I love them. And being able to secure getting combat is just very, 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 very important. And so every bit of mobility helps to get them there. It just makes them a little bit more reliable and a bit more of a threat. Psychic abilities. So, Helbrutes can benefit from psychic abilities. Prescience, Warp Charge 6. If manifested, select a Heretic Astaris unit. Yep. I always get paranoid and have to check. Unit within 18 inches of the Psyker. You can add 1 to hit rolls made for that unit until the start of your next Psychic phase. So this will work well for a variety of Helbrutes, but particularly well for the ranged variety, making all of its attacks more accurate. Also means you can overheat and craze yourself, which is disappointing. So maybe don't prescience your plasma one, because we all want to craze with that and get a good story out of it. So yeah, it does work particularly well, obviously, to then start hitting at range with 2+. But even in combat, hit on 2+, and with Power Scourge as well, that can be quite scary nonetheless. Though I didn't mention them, say take the World Eater's Legion trait, meaning you get a potential of 9 attacks, I believe, is going to be a scary thing. Hit on 2+ with Power Scourge. Something to think on that one as well. Though if you are going World Eaters and you've got prescience off, 1, you're using an allied detachment, 2, the World Eaters won't like you. Well, you get an extra, you're hitting more reliably, more skulls. Anyway, Warp Time, Warp Charge 6. If manifested, pick a Heretic Astaris unit within 3 inches of the Psyker. That unit can move as if it were the movement phase. You cannot use Warp Time on a unit more than once per Psychic phase. Useless for the range variety, obviously, because you don't want to move more. Helpful for the hybrid variety and very helpful for the melee variety. The Helbrute has a movement of 8, making it very mobile, and getting an extra inches on the movement will certainly help. Stratagem recommendations. So the stratagem recommendations for the Helbrute tend to really favour the ranged ones. Call me wrong here, but I'm pretty sure I couldn't see any other sort of melee ones that really benefit them too well. But the ranged ones do help quite a wee bit. So the stratagem recommendations will go Blasphemous Machines, 1 command point. Use this stratagem just before Heretic Astaris vehicle attacks in the shooting phase. Until the end of the phase, the vehicle can ignore the penalties for moving and firing heavy weapons or for advancing and firing assault weapons. As mentioned, this stratagems sort of favour the ranged variety, specifically ones with weight of dice, as you want to ensure as many of those shots connect. Where you would require 4s with your heavy weapons, you're going to be hitting on 3s, which is kind of nice. Works well with the heavy bolter variety for the way of dice argument, or the plasma cannon, so you don't cause mortal wounds on yourself on 1 or 2 if you move, which is not so cool unless you get that wonderful upgrade result and then you fire again and then you cause more 1s and 2s and realise you're doing more damage to yourself than your opponent. Then it's not ideal. I guess this is more important than anything if you are going for range to possibly maybe get away from your opponent. You know, they deep strike a unit in or something. Now, like, actually, you can't do that anymore. You can't deep strike turn 1 into your opponent's range. Anyway, get away from that one. That's all into the beta rules. You know, basically to get away from your opponent. Say they get too close to you and you just want to get some distance. Blood Angels, Furlong Hope, for instance. Then yeah, you want to move back. This means you can still retaliate with a fairly bit of reliable firepower. As you activate this before you fire, means that you're sort of gambling that you're going to get a true benefit from it, where you can maybe save it and use the 1 command point to reroll in case it fails, but then you can use that reroll elsewhere. Is it the best one? Probably not, but it's something to think about. You know, there might be other vehicles that do get a bigger benefit than the Helbrute with this. And finally, the sort of Helbrute exclusive stratagem, Fire Frenzy. 1 command point. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase just before a Helbrute shoots. If the Helbrute did not move in its movement phase, it can fire all of its weapons twice, but all of its ranged attacks must target the nearest visible enemy unit. So again, this is favouring the ranged variety. You know, it gets the advantage. I do really like this stratagem and have been the victim of it when it really worked well. Really well. It was like 4 last cannon shots is an absolute pain, especially on something that was hunkered in cover as well and I couldn't move it. The problem is that it kind of requires your opponent's movements to get the most out of it. You can't move your Helbrute to try and choose your optimal opponent to get the double shots because you have to stay still, and you have to make sure you target the nearest, visible enemy unit to you. So your opponent can put some units to screen it and stop you from using that stratagem, but if they're doing that, then they're possibly displacing themselves at the gamble that you're going to use 1 stratagem. However, I can promise you 4 last cannon shots from a Helbrute is a bargain price and a bit of a pain, you know. Yeah, so, you know, it kind of helps on that side. Given the right opportunity, you might see your opponent, you know, use this as an ideal movement sort of thing to move in another way. It's only 1 command point, you know, but getting extra rounds with plasma or last cannon with missiles as well, it's kind of cool. However, I haven't used it yet because I don't currently own any Helbrutes that are not armed with a fist or a multi-melter, but I am working on it. So yeah, that is my review for the Helbrute. Do I like him? Absolutely. Could he use an invul? Absolutely, but you know, not many of the Dreadnoughts I think for Loyalists do either, so it's kind of a fair one, that, unless they're like Contemptor or something. You know, I think it's only Space Wolves that get that. I could be wrong in that one. Either way, Helbrute, really nice unit. I'm absolutely a huge fan of them. Let me know if you've had any sort of good crazed results where basically you managed to keep going. It would be a lot of fun. Maybe you got one in your psychic phase, then in your shooting phase, then you went into assault and you got, you know, crazed in your assault as well. Love to hear them if you have successfully done that. And if you think there's any sort of range loadouts, melee loadouts or variety loadouts, what do you think is the best loadout for Helbrute? I love reading about them and I'm sure other viewers would like to know your opinions as well. So thanks again for watching, hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something. Comment, share, like and subscribe, and check us out on social media and Patreon where you can help us out to bring you hopefully more content, and we can keep expanding to bring you as much enjoyable stuff as we can. So thanks again, and we'll see you on another Tabletop Assault Battle Report.